Hello and welcome to Feels Like Magic, the podcast where you will get the self-development wisdom you need to feel amazing about being the person you authentically are. I'm Jo, a transformational coach, speaker and author, and for decades I was so stuck in self-criticism I never thought I'd feel good about being me. Now I inhabit a new reality, one where I care way less about what other people think. I'm willing to show up as who I truly am and deepen into self-love and acceptance every single day. Honestly, it feels like magic. Now I'm here to share how I did it. Each week I'll bring you scientifically proven tools, lessons I've learned from the world's best coaches, and personal stories I know you'll relate to. Ready? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to episode 1. I'm so excited to have you here and for this podcast to be a reality in your ears and impacting your beautiful beating heart. I'm Jo, and for a long time I have thought about starting this podcast, but something has gotten in the way, and that, my love, is my perfectionist. So I am here to talk about perfectionism, the reason that we develop perfectionism, what it's costing us, and how if you choose, and everything in life is always a choice, you can start to move out of perfectionism and towards growth. So juicy. So there is a distinction that I really want to make, and that is that high standards and perfectionism are two different things. And I think this is so important for us to deepen into and truly understand. A lot of the time, I myself and women that I work with, we wear perfectionism like a badge of honor. It's like, I'm just a perfectionist, this is who I am, and things are just better when I take them on myself and I do them and then I make them perfect. And there is nothing wrong with having high standards, but the difference is this. If you have high standards, you're probably a high achiever, you're putting stuff out in the world, you're getting your goals completed, and then you're moving on to the next goal with a sense of satisfaction. That is a beautiful thing. That is an absolutely beautiful thing. Perfectionism is different because when we are perfectionists, we are highly self-critical, we put so much pressure on ourselves, we reach for what is basically the impossible. We're very black and white, we're like, it's this or nothing, it's got to be this standard or nothing. And what that does is it wounds our self-esteem, it takes our self-esteem down, but it also just completely blocks our growth. And I believe we're here to grow and evolve. So perfectionism and high standards are two totally different things. I would like to think that I'm a person who's practiced it in high standards, but is not letting the perfectionist part of me really get in the way of growth. So take a second to just really let that land in your system. Perfectionism, high standards, different things. And so if you really think about that and we really think about perfectionism, why would we want to put a crushing pressure on ourselves to achieve the near impossible? Well, because we're human. We are so beautifully human, and we develop coping strategies in life. It's just how our lives are. We come into this world and we begin to learn how to navigate it. And in order to do this, we develop coping strategies, and perfectionism is one of them. There are lots of others, but perfectionism is one that's just been so strong for me, and I think that so many of us experience, that I really wanted to begin here. And the reason that we develop perfectionism is that on some level, we think it's keeping us safe. So 96 to 98% of our behavior is subconscious. It's blew my mind when I first heard it. But it's the truth, it's proven. 2 to 4% of our thinking brain is conscious, where we know what we know and we know what we don't know. But there's all this stuff under the surface. There's all this stuff that we're not aware of. We might see the pattern, but we have no idea where it's come from, or we have no idea why it's here. And perfectionism is a mask. It's something that we can put between ourselves and the world in order to be loved and accepted, and also in order to be not truly seen. So if you are putting whatever the thing is, so for me, for a long time, it was my creative work. I'm a writer, I've written 2 novels. And when I worked on the first one, I just slaved away on that book because I thought that, and again, all subconscious, I thought that if I could produce something that was truly worth other people's attention, if I could produce something that was so good that it would stop people in their tracks and they would really want to read it, then I was worthy, then I was deserving, then I'd be given the gold star. I'd be given the gold star, right? And the problem with that system is I never have control over it. I'm always looking for somebody else to rubber stamp my worthiness. And that is what perfectionism is. And perfectionism can show up in so many ways, my love. It's not just career stuff, although for many of us it manifests that way. But it can also be in your appearance. And it's like, I'm not going to go out of the house unless I've done X, Y, and Z. It can also be in your relationships or dating even. Someone has to be so perfect, or I'm not going to give them the time of day. That's a mask. And it's also a way for us to distract ourselves from feeling. If we're so focused on this thing, if we're so focused on producing this thing, then we don't really have to feel. We don't have to feel the uncomfortableness. We don't have to feel the pain. We don't have to feel the messiness. We don't have to feel because we're distracting ourselves to such a degree. And the thing why this particular mask is so pervasive and this particular distraction technique is so embedded is that we then get praised, right? Who else likes a little bit of praise? We then get praised. Our society then tells us that we're doing a great job because we're slaving away and we're spending all the hours and we have these standards and we look perfect on Instagram. But all it's doing is taking you further away from the person you actually are and more towards an armoring up, more towards a I'm separate from everybody else. And so if this is what perfectionism is, and we understand why it's here, we then have a choice. When we don't know that it's playing out for us, when we're telling ourselves that we just have high standards and that's all okay, and we don't own it, then we don't have a choice. But when we actually can deepen into, okay, I have a perfectionist part, and it is a part of you. One of the things that I do as a coach is work with internal family systems, which is all about different parts of ourselves. And your perfectionist is a part. It's not all of you. It's a part. Like your inner critic is a part and your inner child is a part. Your perfectionist is a part. And so we can look at it and say, okay, I have a perfectionist part, and quite often this part is running the show. This part is putting the pressure on. This part is telling me I'm never going to be good enough. This part is driving behavior that I don't know supports me anymore. When we have an awareness, then we can start to do something about it. And if you're still on the fence, if you're like, no, I'm going to keep my badge of honor, I'm a perfectionist, then I want you to think about this. What is the cost of the perfectionism? Because for me, that cost is really pretty big. And I'll take a really easy example. This podcast. If I was still letting my perfectionist part run the show, it might be another year down the line. It might be another 2 years down the line. It might never happen. And why does that matter? Well, it matters because I'm not learning and growing. I'm not taking the kind of feeling in my body that this is something I should do or want to do or choose to do. I'll talk about the word should in a future episode. But I'm not honoring myself. I'm telling myself that I'm essentially not good enough to do this right now. And that's not true. That's just my perfectionist part who is trying to keep me safe because it is afraid of me being seen. It is afraid of me being visible. It is afraid of people being able to engage with me. And if you're a business owner, especially if you have a business like mine where it's all about me, then having this part run the show is really, really ineffective. So it has a really, really high cost. In relationships, if you're dating, it might be like the cost is actually nobody ever gets close to me. So as much as I can say I want a partner, I'm not letting anybody close, so I'm never going to have the thing that I say I want. So there's that, right? There's that too. So I want you to think about, okay, perfectionist part, understand why it's here. What is the cost for me? What is the cost? And get super clear on that and be very honest with yourself. Be very, very honest. My perfectionist part, after this episode goes out and I've recorded it and all of the things, it will be saying, oh, you didn't say that thing. You didn't say that thing. So what you did say is completely invalid, and that's just completely not true, right? So get really clear on what the cost is. Are you overthinking things to such an extent? Are you putting things so far away from being achievable that you keep yourself stuck? Because my love, that feels like it's safe on a subconscious nervous system level because it's not new and you're not in the threat position. You're not out there, you're not more visible. But I would argue that it's not safe, because if we are not learning and we are not growing and we are not being our full selves, that has a massive impact. That's where depression lived for me. That's where not wanting to get up out of my bed lived for me. And I know I'm not the only one for whom that is true. So I really want you to think about safety. Although it might feel safe to stay where I am, is it really safe? This is another point where you can just reflect and be like, okay, so cost. I want to feel safe on some subconscious level, but is that real safety? Is that actually what feels safe for my life? Because none of us know how long we have. So to never actually put things out there and get momentum and feel good about what we're achieving, to never have that, or to have that very little, that doesn't feel like something that I want to choose. A final thing that I want to say about cost as well is that it's important in terms of what we model to other people. So if I'm over here modeling that things need to be done exactly this way, or modeling that this is the impossible standard that we all have to reach for, that has an impact on everyone around me. Because they then think, oh, I need to do that too. Or it's not good enough unless it's this. And you see this play out all the time on Instagram with like beauty standards and how women present themselves, men present themselves. It's like, if I'm being a perfectionist about this and I'm saying I'm only acceptable if I'm this, and I'm not letting my messy human, makes mistakes, fails, sometimes lies on the floor and cries self be seen, then I'm also modeling that to other people. And I really want you to be aware of that, because so often we do not understand our influence in the world. We don't understand, particularly if our self-worth is low, we don't understand that we still have an impact on people. And you have an impact on people every day. You have an impact on people that you meet in Tesco's. You have an impact on the person that you drive past. You have an impact. Everything is energy. And the energy that you put out and the way that you put things into the world, it matters. It really, really matters. And I would love you to lean into that more. Even if you're not feeling it right now, it does matter. When we think it doesn't matter, then that's just armor, masking up. We're over here, they're over there. I'm keeping myself safe. And that's not fulfillment. I'm hoping that this makes sense. But I'm going to put it out anyway because I trust myself. So, the mask, the armor, the perfectionism badge of honor. Are you willing to look at it? Are you willing to say, okay, is this actually serving me? If you are, here is what I recommend. Just like I am doing right now, what I want you to do is to take one step that is imperfect. One step that, when you would usually work on something for ages and ages, or you'd re-record a voice note, or you would make sure that your hair was so beautiful before you went on camera, or whatever the thing is. I want you to invite in your humanity, invite in your messiness, invite in your full self, and I want you to be okay with it being enough and take the action. So you need to decide what that action is for you. I can't tell you that, but you will know there's something that I normally go 5 steps higher on, and maybe I could just go 3 steps higher, right? Maybe I could just bring down the perfectionism standard a little, just a little. Doesn't need to be massive to begin with. We do not need to be shunting and shoving ourselves into something that feels so uncomfortable, but we do need change. We do need what I would call stretchy. That point where it's like, I don't want to, but I can, is the point where we can take action. So take an action that feels slightly imperfect. I'm doing it right now because I will be publishing this episode, and I could go over this again and again. I could structure it, I could do all the things, right? But I'm not going to, because I believe my humanity, my messiness, my vulnerability, myself is what gets to be here. It's what gets to be here. And that does not mean that I'm not incredibly thoughtful about what I bring, and I don't intend to deliver a high standard, and I didn't order a very fancy microphone, all of those things I've done, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It does not need to be perfect, my love. So take the step, be with the discomfort in your body. Yes, it might feel uncomfortable, but so often we think of discomfort as something that means wrong, something that means that we've made a mistake, when actually it's just new. It's like movement in our system. We're like, oh, this is unfamiliar. So be with that in your nervous system and give yourself the experience of, okay, I didn't die. Because on some level, there's a part of you, you're perfectionist, and it might be protecting you very, very deeply from this. You know, our parts go so deep. It might be protecting you from rejection. It might be protecting you from pain. It might be protecting you from an experience that you have that it just does not want you to have again. So we're here for that. We understand it, and we're going to show that part that we can do something new. We can absolutely do something new that's not 100% perfect, and we're going to survive. We're not going to die. And what I would highly recommend and highly encourage is that you share this episode and you tag me and you tell me what the action is that you've taken, and let me celebrate it with you. Let me be here with you as you just take that action out of perfectionism. Being with the discomfort, being with what it brings up and not making it wrong. I would so love to be here to support you as you go through this. And this is how we begin, and then we repeat. This is how we begin, and then we repeat, right? It's not a one-time thing, but you are starting to sow the seed. You're starting to show your subconscious, hey, I'm okay, life can be different. And this thing that has been costing me a lot is not something that I have to always have, that I have to always live with. It's not something that I choose anymore. All right, I so hope that you've taken something valuable from this episode. I would absolutely love for you to share it with anyone you think may benefit, and I'll be back with you next week. Thank you for being here and being you. All my love. Thank you for listening to Feels Like Magic. It is glorious to have you here, and you made it all the way to the end. If you want to know more about me and what I do, go to my website, joannebell.org, or find me on Instagram at IamJoanneBell. See you next time.